So in the last video, I talked about how roles that may seem very complex can actually be broken down to create a training manual out of. Now, sales calls are not the most complex things, but they do have a bit of the stepwise learning and the layered learning. And so I put them together to create a little bit of an example of a training manual for a sales associate. Now, I am not a master salesperson myself, that's not my trade, but I have enough information here that I think it would be enough to get a person going from 0 to at least being able to handle a sales call. So first off, I would start them at level 1. Right, and expect them to take only 1 week to get through level 1. Now this would be mostly to watch videos and manuals on how to do the way we want them to do the sales calls. So I would say learn reflective listening, learn how to first pitch the solution to them, then talk about the company, and then talk about the details from there. Finally, I'd want them to know about all the objections that are usually found during sales calls and how to handle them. Once they've learned all this, maybe they can take a quiz on it or have like a little piece of paper they can fill out about some of the objections. I would want them to role play with the mentor. And that would be their level 1. And then the mentor will know if they need to go back and read some of the material again, or if they're ready for level 2. So level 2, they're gonna sit in on a sales call with the mentor. The mentor is gonna do everything. This new associate is just gonna sit there and listen. And of course, they're gonna take notes. Then, they can talk about it later and say, what did you do here? Why'd you do that? I would have done it this way, etc. And when the mentor thinks they're ready, they're going to have a supervised sales call. The associate actually is going to do the call. The mentor is going to be on the call but not say anything. And then later on, they can both review. And that will be expected to, the supervised sales call will be in at least 1 month, maybe sooner than that. So they've got their supervised sales call under their belt. Maybe they've done a few more within that first month, but then they'll finally hit level 3, where the mentor is like, you're doing pretty well on your own. You can do solo sales calls now. But the mentor is still going to be around. It's going to be sending him emails or chat or stop by and say, hey, how's the sales calls going? Do you have any questions? It's going to be readily available there and make sure that they have time in their week to review or answer any questions they have. And I expect this to be 6 months where that person's really ramping up, really getting the hang of it, starting to understand what's going on. Now, level 4 is when the mentor says, okay, you've done a really good job. I know you guys, you don't need any help from me anymore. Go on, you're at sales, you're now graduated and can do it on your own. And so I expect them to, spend 6 months in this, closely monitored area, and then no help needed. That would be on into the future. But they'll spend about 1 year, I think, in this no help needed, they're fine on their own, before they meet level 5. So in level 5, they break off into 2 zones. One, if they don't want to mentor anybody. They like just being alone, they're like a lone wolf, and they just like being on the phone, doing those sales calls. They're a master. And they're able to get creative with their sales calls because they know what works, they know what doesn't work. They've spent a year doing sales calls. And so they can actually go back to the mentor and say, hey, I picked up these few things, I've learned this couple stuff, like maybe we should add this into what we do in the future. Or they can become a mentor. They like working with people, they enjoy training, they like this whole process, and so they get to go back and start training people and be that person that trains the sales associate. So notice that I have the levels here from the layered system, because you kind of have to do a whole sales call to know what a sales call is about, right? But there are steps along the way of, you can get really good at reflective listening. or you can get really good at objective handling. And those are different steps that you can practice and get better at before you're better at the whole thing. So keep the steps and the layers in mind when you're designing your complex role. And think about the levels that you want to break them into and how long you want them to spend at each level. And then maybe a graduation point for each level to make sure that you're like, okay, and have a metric. Whether they do it or their mentor is like, it's good, or they did a certain amount, and to let them graduate to the next level. This will give your new hires a great example of what is coming for them and what is expected of them as they move through the company, even for years to come. And again, if you're having any trouble putting these things together, that's what memory consulting is for. Give us a call. We'll be happy to help you out.